So, David, let me ask you this. So, why final expense? What's so important about final expense or impactful?
Well, I think it's that. I think we touched on that, and that's a two-part deal, right? One thing that we'll speak to people about, and one thing that we do when we visit with somebody in their home is we bring out a free gift we call Final Wishes Planning Guide. And one piece of your final expense is going to be, what are we going to do? When you go down and you show up at the funeral home, that funeral director has, from what we've seen, almost uh, 111 questions that you're going to answer about not only how are you going to pay for this, right? That's what the policy is for, but what are we going to do? What songs do we want to play? Do we want to keep our glasses on? Are we going to do a traditional? Are we going to do a service? Are we going to do this? Who's going to be our pallbearers? That, again, is a painful process. The people that have to go do that are usually the ones that feel the biggest burden and the biggest grief of losing that person that's been there. So, again, the final expense plan and what we're out there doing right now at Founders Week is we're visiting with families. We're not only putting money in place for how am I going to pay for this, but we're also helping put a plan together and giving you a tool that allows for you to plan that out. Because, and this is just what we say, but 100%, right? If you were asked, would you like to go down to the funeral home and have your funeral planned out, or would you want your daughter to do that for you after you're gone? 100% of people are going to say, I would like to do that. I would like to make sure that she doesn't have to go do that for me. But 90% of those people, as you probably felt when you were asked, do you want to go down to the funeral home? You're thinking, absolutely not. 9 out of 10 people never do. So the reason why we can be such a benefit to a family is because we're coming out to them. You never have to go down to the funeral home, but you can put something together that answers those 111 questions, and you can have a guarantee the moment that we leave the house that says, if something happened to me later today or tomorrow, I've got my savings account at least.
And when you think about the impact of what it is that we do, a story comes to mind. And David, I know that you've heard this, but I'm sure some of our listeners have not heard this story before. It actually comes from Glenn Crabtree, president and CEO of Orca Life. He's been on a few of our other episodes within our Hype podcast. And this was so powerful. So he's in Monticello, Kentucky, and he's following up on leads, knocking doors. This is probably about 10 or 12 years ago. And he said he got into this lady's home. She was probably in her mid-50s, and they were sitting at her kitchen table. And he said, it just felt weird. Like, I looked at the refrigerator and I felt like I've seen this refrigerator before, but I've never been here before. Because Glenn asked the lady, he said, have I been here before? And she said, no. He goes, and he's looking around, he's looking at the refrigerator, and he's like, that's my picture on your refrigerator. It was Glenn's business card on this lady's refrigerator. And he goes, why do you have my picture on your refrigerator? And she stopped and she said, are you Glenn Crabtree? And he said, yes. And she burst into tears because she said, you were the one that helped my dad take out a policy. And I don't know how you did, because he was a tough guy. And that was the only thing that we had to bury him on that day. And, when they settled up the estate, she received his refrigerator and left Glenn's picture. His picture was still on there. Talk about a butterfly effect. I mean, truly, talk about the impact that Glenn was in that gentleman's home years prior. It paid, and then he's sitting in front of his daughter. Talk about the impact of that. And
Maybe now we understand, right, why the mantra has always been helping beneficiaries that you'll never meet.
Yes.
And that is a story of when Glenn Crabtree actually met one.
Yes. Yes. No, truly. That's just so impactful. I mean, what are the odds that you're going to end up in that the lady's house with the picture? And that's just really what Orca Life and Founders Week is all about, right? It's about helping those families, helping your own family in return, and really breaking down those belief barriers, right? But you've got to have a target to pursue and to hit.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to just kind of say too. When you think about that, if I aim at nothing, I'll hit it every time. And if you're a consumer out there listening to this cast, think about sending your family down to the funeral home with no target, right? Think about that process and the 111 questions and the pain that they're sitting in. Because we live here in Louisville, Kentucky, and you may or may not know a man named Junior Bridgman, but Junior passed away 2 days ago now, and Junior is an extremely healthy individual. He's impacted our city, our community, so many people that we are close to in so many different ways globally. Junior's now owns 10% of the Milwaukee Bucks. He played basketball at the University of Louisville, played in the NBA, and then went on to be an extremely successful businessman. And he was at a charity event Tuesday, luncheon for the Boy Scouts of America, Lincoln Heritage Foundation. And on stage, in the middle of his interview, throws his hands up and says, "I think I'm having a heart attack." And those were the last words that came out of his mouth. And if you looked at Junior as 71 years old, 70 years young, as we would say, you would have never expected that day to have been 2 days ago. But that is the world and that is the life that we live in. And you just don't know. And that is why what we do, and that is why setting the target, especially as we age, and Lindsey and I, now me celebrating that February 26th, 40th birthday, you start to think about these things more often. And that's why we have always said final expense is a forever business.